Very specific and very heavy reputation.
Today we are taking a trip down to the border.
Right, to the Sun City.
Yeah, El Paso, Texas.
Which is a place that carries a very specific and very heavy reputation.
Exactly. I mean, if you follow national news, or honestly, if you just, casually look at crime rankings on Wikipedia, you know that El Paso is consistently touted as one of the safest cities in the United States.
Right.
It has this image of a tight-knit community, low crime rates, you've got the famous star on the mountain shining down. It really sounds idyllic.
It does. And it's a reputation the city, and specifically the police department, wears like a badge of honor. I mean, they really lean into it. The safest city.
But today, we're doing something a little different. We aren't just looking at the travel brochure or the glossy press releases. We have a massive stack of documents here on the desk.
Very tall stack.
Yeah. We're talking about the El Paso Police Department's own 2020 annual report, sure. But we've also got FBI investigation files, some blistering statements from the ACLU, and some really heavy investigative journalism.
Right, from outlets like El Paso Matters and KVIA.
Exactly. And when you overlay these sources, like when you put the glossy report right next to a federal indictment, that safe city image starts to look a little different.
Yeah, it's not that the safety is fake, per se,
Right.
but it is deeply, deeply complicated.
So that is our mission today for you listening. We are looking at a study in contrasts. We need to figure out how a department can be doing amazing community outreach, literally buying bus tickets for stranded strangers, which we will get to.
We go.
And on the other hand, be facing allegations of a toxic boys club culture, grant fraud, and a disciplinary system that critics say is basically designed to let bad actors off the hook.
It really is a story of two departments.
Okay.
Or maybe, two realities existing inside one headquarters.
Let's jump right in. So when I started going through these reports, specifically the demographic data from that 2020 annual report, one number just hit me like a ton of bricks. It was about who is actually wearing the uniform.
You're looking at the gender breakdown?
I am. Now, for context for everyone listening, El Paso as a city is roughly 51% female. Pretty standard for the U.S.
Very standard.
But the El Paso Police Department, the sworn personnel,
13% female.
only 14%.
Yeah.
That means 86% of the force is male. It felt incredibly lopsided.
It is incredibly low.
Yeah.
And I want to flag that number right now for you. Keep that 14% in your head as we talk today.
Right.
Because it's not just a diversity stat. As we go through these reports, that number ends up being a skeleton key that unlocks a lot of the cultural issues we're going to talk about later, specifically regarding harassment and what acts as a sort of blue wall of silence.
It sets the stage for a very specific type of environment, doesn't it?
It suggests a monolithic culture. When a group is that homogenous, it tends to protect its own norms very aggressively.
Right. But before we get to the heavy stuff, and it really does get heavy, we have to look at the official narrative.
We do.
Because the annual report isn't just dry stats. It paints a picture of a force that is deeply embedded in the community. And honestly, reading some of this, you get why the community supports them.
Right. I mean, in 2020, they had a huge job. You had about 1,184 sworn officers, plus 263 civilians, serving a city of over 680,000 people.
Which is massive.
And remember, 2020 was the pandemic year.
Mask mandates, lockdowns, total uncertainty everywhere.
Exactly. The report details officers protecting testing sites, delivering food to vulnerable seniors, enforcing health ordinances when no one really knew what was going on. They were on the front lines. And there are some genuinely touching stories in the report that highlight this service mindset.
There was one that stood out to me. It almost sounds like something out of a feel-good movie script. There's a blind, elderly widower who was stranded in El Paso.
Right. He was trying to get back to California.
He had lost his money. It was about $200, which was everything he had on him. He was totally desperate. Now, in a cynical version of the world, or maybe just a standard bureaucratic version, the police take a report, say sorry about your luck, and move along.
But that's not what happened here.
No. Officers Lerma, Pena, Milner, and Chapa, and I think it's important we say their names, they stepped up.
They did.
They didn't just file paperwork. They reached into their own pockets to buy him a bus ticket home.
And the ripple effect of that kindness was immediate, according to the report.
Yeah, the story goes that the ticket concierge at the bus station saw these cops pitching in their own cash, and he was so moved he actually comped the ticket.
Wow.
That is protect and serve in the most literal, compassionate sense.
It is. It's community policing at its best. And then you also have the story of Kaylee.
Oh, Kaylee the card maker. This was sweet.
It really was. She was a young girl inspired by Mother Teresa. She made over 1,000 support cards and donated stuffed animals to the department.
Specifically so officers could give them to traumatized children they encountered on calls, right?
Exactly. And the reaction from the officers wasn't just a polite thank you. The graveyard shift at the Mission Valley Command were so touched, they pooled their own funds to buy her more art supplies so she could keep going.
That's amazing.
It shows a department that isn't just an occupying force. They are neighbors. They had Officer Gazman running sidewalk Sunday schools.
When you read this section of the report, you think, okay, these are good people doing a hard job under really difficult circumstances.
And here's where the deep dive takes a turn. We have to look at the effectiveness of this force, because nice doesn't always equal effective.
No, it doesn't.
You found some data on clearance rates in that same report that seemed to contradict the whole safest city narrative. This is a crucial distinction. We often conflate low crime rate with good policing, but they aren't the same thing at all. El Paso has a low crime rate, that is a fact. But when a serious crime does happen, how good is the department at solving it?
Right, how good are they?
Well, looking at the 2020 data for criminal homicide, the department had a clearance rate of 46.4%.
Wait, 46%?
Yes.
So if a murder happens, there's less than a 50-50 chance it gets solved.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And to give you a benchmark, the national average that year was 61.4%.
Yeah.
So they were lagging significantly behind the rest of the country in solving murders. They were also behind on robbery and aggravated assault clearance.
That is a huge insight for us. You can feel safe because crime is rare, but if you are a victim, the system might not deliver justice.
Exactly. And that lack of resolution can be a crack in the foundation of public trust. But the cracks get much wider and much darker when you start looking at the internal culture.
Right. Which brings us back to that 14% number and the investigative report titled Shadows Over Justice.
This is where the story really pivots. We are moving from the service image to the toxic workplace allegations. El Paso Matters and KRWG did a deep dive, a 7-month investigation into what it's actually like to be a woman in the department.
And the conclusion wasn't pretty.
No. They found a culture of deep-seated misogyny.
And we aren't talking about insensitive jokes in the break room. We are talking about predatory behavior.
There was one incident that was just stomach-churning. A male officer filmed a female detective without her consent during a sexual encounter.
Yes. And then shared it.
He shared it.
He shared with other officers within the department. It's a massive violation of privacy, trust, and obviously law. But here's the part that reveals the culture. The blowback wasn't primarily on him. The female officer faced significant backlash from her colleagues for ruining his career by reporting it. That is the classic toxic boys club mentality. Protect the brother, blame the victim. Like, why did you have to make a fuss?
It's systemic complicity. There was another case from 2023 involving a lieutenant accused of blackmail and sexual assault against 2 female officers. Court documents allege that a sergeant, a supervisor who should be the first line of defense, actually knew about it.
He knew.
Yes. And instead of intervening, he encouraged one of the victims to comply with the lieutenant's advances.
Comply. That is a chilling word in that context.
Very chilling.
It implies that being harassed is just part of the job description if you're a woman in the department.
And this is exactly why that 14% statistic matters. When women are such a small minority and the leadership structure is overwhelmingly male, and you have these examples of retaliation, it signals that the department is not a safe place for its own officers.
It creates a survival mechanism where you just keep your head down and you don't report anything.
Exactly.
So if they treat their own people like that, if they can't hold themselves accountable internally for how they treat their own colleagues, what does that mean for the public? What happens when a citizen has a complaint?
That is the next domino to fall here. And the data there is just as concerning. KFO X14 got their hands on the use of force complaints from 2018 to 2023.
And the numbers are going up, right?
They are. Complaints nearly doubled in that time frame, from 57 in 2018 to 107 in 2023.
Now, you could argue maybe people are just complaining more. Or maybe there's more awareness.
You could, but the real story is the sustain rate.
Okay, help us out with the jargon. What does sustained mean in police terms?
A sustained complaint means the internal investigation looked at the evidence and said, yes, the officer did something wrong. The complaint was valid.
Okay, so out of the nearly 700 complaints filed over those 5 years, how many were sustained?
35.
35 out of 700.
35 out of nearly 700.
That's
In 2018 specifically, out of all the complaints filed, 0 were sustained.
That seems statistically impossible. 0.
0.
That implies a level of perfection that human beings just don't achieve, let alone in high-stress policing scenarios.
It implies a system designed to dismiss complaints. And these aren't just paperwork errors. We are talking about serious incidents. The ACLU points to the death of Xavier Hernandez, who died from asphyxiation while restrained face down. They mention Eric Salas and Mercedes DeMarco. These are people who died during encounters with police, and the accountability mechanism seemed to just stall out entirely.
Why? Is it incompetence? Is it a cover-up? Or is there a mechanism actually stopping these investigations from going forward?
It's structural.
Yeah.
And this is fascinating because it's written right into the rules. The ACLU and City Council discussions highlighted a few key shields that protect officers. The big one is the 180-day rule.
The 180-day rule, what is that?
It's a provision in the police union contract. It basically says that if the department leaders don't impose discipline within 180 days of the incident occurring, they lose the right to discipline the officer at all.
Wait, what?
The complaint simply expires.
That sounds insane. So if an investigation is complicated and it takes 181 days, the officer walks free.
Correct. Or think about this. If the victim is traumatized and waits 6 months to come forward, too late. The clock has run out.
It creates a perverse incentive for the department to just delay until the problem goes away.
Exactly. It's a structural loophole.
It's a bureaucratic get-out-of-jail-free card.
It is. And on top of that, you have the Accountability Review Board. Now, it sounds official, like a court, but it's managed internally. It's literally the police policing the police.
Right.
The ACLU argues, and I think the stats absolutely back them up, that without an independent civilian oversight body, you can never have true accountability. It's a closed loop.
And I read in the sources that the contract also hides misconduct records. Is that true?
Yes. If a complaint isn't sustained, and remember, 95% of them aren't, the record is often sealed or destroyed.
Wow.
So the public doesn't know if a specific officer has had 20 complaints in the last year. It's invisible to us.
This paints a picture of a department that has built a fortress around itself. But I have to ask, is this a new problem? Or has this been going on for a while?
It's definitely not new. And if you think the toxic culture is just about social issues or excessive force, we really need to talk about money. We need to talk about Operation Poisoned Pawns.
Operation Poisoned Pawns. It sounds like a spy thriller title.
It plays like one. This was a massive FBI investigation into public corruption in El Paso that ran from roughly 2004 to 2014. It was a very dark time for the city's leadership.
Who got caught up in it?
It took down county judges, commissioners, school board trustees. Over 40 public officials were convicted or pleaded guilty.
But the police department had its own special chapter in this saga, right?
They did. It was known as the traffic ticket scheme.
Which honestly sounds petty, doesn't it? Traffic tickets. But I have a feeling it wasn't.
It wasn't petty at all. It involved a federal grant from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Okay.
Millions of dollars meant to keep roads safe. The idea was to pay officers overtime to target aggressive drivers.
Standard stuff. Pay for extra work to keep people safe on the highways.
But what happened was widespread fraud. 17 officers were indicted. You had names like Paul Bowden, Oscar Candelaria, David Jimenez.
And what exactly were they doing?
The FBI found they were tampering with government records, they were writing fake tickets, or claiming they were working that overtime shift when they were actually at home, or at a party, or working a completely different second job.
They were treating federal safety grants like a personal ATM?
Precisely. And the city audit reports from that time are just brutal to read. They show a complete administrative collapse.
How so?
The department was so bad at managing these grants, not submitting reports, not requesting reimbursements on time, that they left millions of dollars on the table. Unreimbursed funds.
They literally couldn't handle the paperwork.
It got so bad, the city of El Paso actually had to step in and strip the police department of its administrative duties.
They took the checkbook away.
They took the checkbook away. Imagine how embarrassing that is. A paramilitary organization that prides itself on discipline, and they can't be trusted to fill out a timesheet?
That really damages the credibility of the entire institution. Because if you lie on a timesheet to steal money, why wouldn't you lie on a police report to cover up a use of force?
That is the essential connection here. Corruption is rarely isolated to just one thing. If the culture allows for fraud, it likely allows for other things. It erodes the moral authority required to enforce the law.
So we have these two completely different pictures. We have Officer Lerma buying the bus ticket, doing the right thing when no one was watching. We have the sidewalk Sunday school.
Yeah.
And then we have the 14% female force, the harassment, the 180-day rule, and the history of fraud. How are we supposed to reconcile this?
I think the takeaway for you listening is to understand that safety is not a single metric. It's not just a number on a chart.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you can look at a chart and say, El Paso is safe because I'm unlikely to get robbed. And that is true, and it absolutely matters. That quality of life is real. But we have to ask, is the institution safe?
Right. Safe for whom?
Exactly. If you are a female officer, is your workplace safe?
Clearly not always.
Right. If you were a citizen who's been mistreated, is the complaint process safe and fair? If the department is defrauding the federal government, is the taxpayer safe?
It almost seems like the safe city ranking might actually be acting as a shield. Like, don't look too closely at how the sausage is made. Just enjoy the fact that you didn't get mugged today.
That's the danger. High-level success can mask deep systemic dysfunction. And the ACLU's argument, based on these sources, is that you can't fix this by just hiring more officers or buying better equipment.
You need structural reform.
You need to get rid of the 180-day rule. You need independent oversight that isn't beholden to the chain of command.
And you need to change a culture where women feel like they have to comply with a supervisor's advances just to survive their shift.
Absolutely. Because until the internal culture changes, until that 14% number rises and the boys' club mentality is fully dismantled, the external trust will always be fragile.
It really makes you think about the metrics we use to judge our cities. We obsess over crime rates, but maybe we should be looking just as hard at accountability rates.
I think that's the real aha moment here. True safety requires integrity. Without that, you just have order. And order isn't the same thing as justice.
That is a powerful distinction.